What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Trippe. Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Live podcast. We interview the very best real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and business leaders all throughout this great country. Today is obviously no different. We've got the great Chris Naugle with us today. How's it going today, Chris?
Oh, it's going great. Great. Very happy to be here. Thanks, Brian.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to talk to you. You're the very first HGTV or former HGTV star we've ever had on this show. So I'm excited to talk to you and kind of learn a little bit more about that culture, if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
And I want to obviously know what you're up to now. You're out of Buffalo, New York, but you do a lot of traveling. I just, heard your travel schedule that's coming up. It sounds pretty intense. And so I want to kind of get into that. I want to hear what you're up to today and how we might be able to benefit the audience. So let's start from the very beginning, Chris. Tell everybody how you got into real estate, when you got into real estate, how you got into real estate, and what you're up to today.
Sure. I'm going to just take a quick step before that because the story doesn't make sense if I just started real estate. So it actually started back when I was about 16. I quit my job and I quit trading hours for dollars. And I grew up in a very low income family. So I really never had much money, but I had a mom who I call the unconditional one, who always believed in me, and she always allowed me to dream, even though she didn't have anything to, help me get there. But that dream was what she always fueled. And by 17 years old, I had started a clothing line in mom's basement. I went on and I wanted to open a store. I was on my way to being a pro snowboarder at that time. That was like my all in. That's what I really wanted, and that ended up becoming reality. But at 17 is when I kind of really hit that wall of reality where I'm like, wow, it is different when you don't have money. It is different when you grow up the way I did. And I wanted to open this store called Fat Man. It was my dream, and all I needed was 70 grand. And I went around, I asked every person I knew, that I thought had money. Hey, can I borrow money? Hey, can you collateralize this? Hey, can you help me? And I didn't know anything. I was a 17-year-old punk snowboard kid. And I heard no way, absolutely not. And then finally, I got a yes. And that was from my mom. But my mom didn't have anything to give me. But the one thing she did have is she got the house in the divorce. So she put her house up for collateral and allowed me to live my dreams. And looking back, it was a really stupid thing for her to do. But she did it because she never followed her dreams and never lived her dreams. And she wanted me to do that. Wow. So that's kind of where it all begins. And there's a lot that happened in between there. I went on to be a pro snowboarder. I went on to, create that whole chain of retail stores, which are still around today. I did sell them off. I became a financial advisor in the early 2000s when the first recession hit. My stores kind of took a big nosedive and I needed to figure things out. And I was always fascinated with money. So that's the direction I went. And what ended up happening is in the financial advisory business, I got really good at it. I rose to the top. I was managing tens of millions of dollars and, things were going great. So that's how I entered real estate. Really, somebody had said, oh, you should start flipping houses. I'm like, yeah, cool. I'll flip a house. Sounds easy, right? You kind of watch the shows, you hear it. I'm like, oh, we'll buy the house. We'll do demo day. And, 30 days later, I'll have it back on the market. Well, that's never the way it works. So that was my I was probably 25 or 26 when I did this, and me and my friend did it. And, we had this big ambitious goal to make 35,000. And I think at the end of it, about a little over a year later, we made about 8 grand, but I had the bug. I knew, at that point I was like, I can do it. So that's how I entered real estate. I mean, it's just like so many other people. You decide demo day is the funnest day. And after that, the rest of it goes downhill until the day it gets sold.
So, Chris, you're a fascinating man. Oh my gosh. Take me through. So you're 16 years old, 17 years old, and you realize that you have some sort of entrepreneurial spirit inside of you. Where did that come from?
That's a good question. So remember that job I said I quit? That job, I was degraded so badly. I remember every day I'd come into work there. They made me feel worthless. They made me feel useless. I started to believe, and my mom witnessed this, I started to believe that I couldn't do anything right. And I'd come home with that, and I started getting depressed as a kid. And when I quit at that moment, that's when I said, I'm never going to work for anybody again. And the snowboarding that was what changed it for me, because snowboarding is a very individual sport. It's you against, everybody else. It's not a team sport. So I watched all these other companies and these young guys doing these snowboard companies, and I'm like, that's what I want. So that's kind of where the entrepreneur came up. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. Matter of fact, dad was a factory worker. Mom was a stay-at-home mom running a daycare out of the house just to make ends meet. And it was a huge struggle for her. And my dad, growing up, he was an alcoholic. So he really wasn't part of my life. And I don't know where that whole entrepreneur thing comes from, but somewhere there was a spark that went off, and I never let it go. Yeah.
So your story, just going through your story, there's like a kind of a litany here of things that you've tried, and it sounds like you've succeeded at most everything you attempted.
Not even close.
Okay, so talk about that. That's what I was going to ask you. Like, what were the kind of the failures along the way that I guess helped you kind of get to where you are?
There is more failures than there is successes, and I am a firm believer that every no puts you one step closer to a yes, and every single failure is one step closer to success, and you can't succeed without failing. So my failures started as early as 17 years old. I told you the short version where mom helped me, but that was at the point where I was ready to give up, because I had literally exhausted everything. I was way underknowledged. I only had conventional knowledge, which wasn't enough to get me there. So that was my first failure. But then I got that success, and I almost lost that store a couple times in that 5 years. I remember being in the back room, laying on the boxes, crying myself to sleep at night, not knowing how I was going to make the bills the next day. So not that those are failures, but my first failure really came, I would say, in 2008. Okay. In 2008, I was crushing it as a financial advisor. Things were good. I'd flipped a couple houses, and I decided to buy and redevelop a strip mall, because why not? Hey, it sounded great, but they always say timing's everything. Well, 2008 was the wrong time to do just about anything, but I didn't know. And I dove into this thing. I borrowed money from the wrong person, and it literally got so bad. I was going to be bankrupt. It was exactly where I was headed. I had one payment left in my account. After that, I was flat broke, and I was literally thinking bankruptcy is the only option. And I remember I came home one night. My girlfriend had just moved in, and I looked her in the eye. And up to this point, I'd had a lot of successes. So I had the ego thing going. I was like, I never needed anybody's help. I never needed anybody, for much of anything. And at this point, I had to look my wife in the eye, and I had to say, sweetie, I need your help. I need you to help me pay the mortgage. I need you to help me pay the utilities. And by the way, I got to rent that bedroom out, because I'm going to lose it all. And so it wasn't a failure, but it was literally that close. And I got, if anyone, that watches this believes in a higher power, which I certainly do, I am just always believing there's someone watching out for you. That's the only thing I can explain what happened next. I ended up miraculously filling that plaza before it was done, which gave me the ability to take it and refinance it. And I literally wouldn't have made it. There's no way I would have made it if that didn't happen. So somebody was watching over me. That was my first failure. And then beyond that, I failed a whole bunch of times. I tried a whole bunch of new businesses, failed so many stinking times. But it was just one failure just led to the next door opening.
So I read a lot of books, and I think you do too. I think we did a podcast about a week ago where I'm going to be on your show, which is really awesome. Excuse me, a great honor. And we were talking about some books, and I've been reading some lately. I've heard this from two different books where it's one says fail forward. We've heard that, but I just read something the other day where it's like we should be seeking to double our fail rate every day. Seeking to double our fail rate. Really, it's just if you try and try and try, you're obviously something's going to, that's the never give up inside of you. And that's one of the keys to success is not giving up. So, and you didn't do that. You didn't give up. You kept working at it, At what point, give me a timeline here, Chris. At what point did you find real estate? Where was real estate in that timeline?
Real estate would have been in 2006, my first flip. But I like to say I found real estate, but then I really found real estate. See, I found real estate, and I did it based on conventional knowledge. And conventional knowledge, what the average out there, what you're going to get, the knowledge you're going to get isn't enough to really make it. You can get lucky, but I wasn't a very lucky kind of guy. So I kept failing. And then again, in 2000, that was 8. And then I kind of jumped back in. Warren Buffett's a huge, I don't even know how to call what he is to me, but he is such an inspiration that I always follow everything he says. And he said, buy low. So from 2009 to 2014, I dove back into real estate, even though I was almost like just destroyed, and ate, and bought a lot of properties, but I did them the conventional way because I didn't know. And then in 14, I almost lost it all again. I was literally living paycheck to paycheck, making a lot of money as a high level or high performing advisor. And I had to sell every property. And me and she was my fiance at that time, Larissa, we had to sell our dream house. I mean, at that point we had a bunch of things. And that was another humbling point. So at that point in time, I think that's when I really dove in, and I got the magic postcard. Really is where it started. I got a magic postcard in the mail, said, come to this big real estate event and we'll teach you everything. And, everybody would say, dude, don't you ever learn your lesson? And I tell them, I say, look, I didn't go to that seminar because I wanted to learn. I went because they were giving away a free iPod shuffle. And I was so humbled by my failures at that point. I had nothing to lose, but I had an iPod shuffle to gain. Right. But here's the moral of that story is the next day. So that this is day 2 of that seminar. The day 2, I didn't learn a whole bunch of new stuff, but I learned one thing. And that one thing changed everything for me. I learned that what the successful real estate investors were doing, what the wealthy were doing, and what the rich were doing was the complete opposite of what I was doing. And that's all I needed to know. And I then learned and started asking myself tough questions. Why wasn't I taught this? I'm an advisor. Why didn't I learn this? How come nobody's ever taught this? But at that point, I learned no one's ever going to teach you. You have to seek that information, just like you were saying about reading books. And that's when I began the journey of getting off the hamster wheel and learning how it really worked and following what the wealthy do.
Yeah. So give us some of those tips. Like give us a tip or two. What did you learn, and what kind of flipped the script for you?
Sure. So, prior to that, I knew, like, if I needed money, I did the traditional way. I'd either go and ask, close people, hey, can I borrow money? And, what happens when you ask people for money? You usually hear no, because you're in a powerless position. When you ask for something, all your power is gone and you place all your power in them. And I heard a lot of no's. And the other thing I was doing is I was using conventional financing, conventional wisdom, conventional financing. So I was going to the bank, and we all know how banks work, right? You go to the bank will give you 80% of purchase price. You come up with the 20%, you come up with all the renovation. Well, I don't care who you are unless you're Warren Buffett. I mean, everybody will hit the proverbial financial wall. And that's what happened. In 14, I got up to 36 units. And even though I was doing well, literally that 20%, that rehab, you get to the point where literally one straw can break the camel's back. And I don't remember, I had a string of things go wrong with the apartments, and I just threw my hands up. I said, I got to sell everything. And instead of just selling one, which would have been smart, I'm done. And I sold them all. But what happened next is, I sold them all for quite a profit, and I took that profit and I invested it in education and knowledge. And that's kind of what happened. It's interesting to talk about it in hindsight and really look at what those things were. But the difference in what I did in those secrets, and I like to call them the wealth building secrets of the rich. All the rich do, and all the wealthy and successful investors do, is they mimic what banks do. They keep their money in motion, and that is the most important thing I can tell people. And it's so hard because it is the complete opposite of what you've been taught your entire life. But until you get off that hamster wheel, until you seek out the proper knowledge, you'll never find the way. And really, the way was very simple. The wealthy were using other people's money. The wealthy were using hedge funds. They were using private money. They were not asking for money. They were creating opportunities for others to solve other people's problems. And that's the biggest piece of advice. If you can just do one thing different, and that is, instead of asking for money, because money is always the big, that's the big barrier to get over. If you start creating opportunities with what you do and what you're trying to do that will then solve other people's goals and other people's problems. And I got news for everybody. Everybody has the same problem, and that is they all want to make more money. It's very simple. It's the universal, really, because it starts with money and ends with money. So if you can solve that problem for people, you will find that money will flow at you. And this is what I speak about all over the country, and I guess if you consider Canada the world. I teach people about how money really works. Yeah, I haven't made it across the big sea, but the big border I get across quite often. And that's it. So just mimic your thinking and your mindset to do what the wealthy do. And Warren Buffett says it awesome. He says, and I don't want to be cliche in saying this, but this is what he says. He says, if poor people would just do what the rich do, poor people wouldn't be poor anymore. And that's so simple. If you and just anybody would just watch and do what banks do and not overcomplicate it. It's very simple. What a bank does is keeps money in motion all the time, but it's not their money. It's other people's money.
That's right.
And that's what you got to do. Sorry, I went long with that, Brian. I get really passionate about the money side.
So we're going to come back to that because I know that that's what you're doing today, and that's your key focus today. I want to come back to that, but before we kind of hit on the money stuff, and I think a lot of people want that and need that knowledge, and that's some amazing stuff. I want to learn about the HGTV stuff because I just don't know. I didn't do any. So this is the kind of podcast host I am. Sometimes I'll research somebody like really deep if I feel like I need to. With you, I didn't really research you that much because I want to learn with the audience. I want to learn. So obviously this couldn't have been that long ago if you're really getting this 2014 and 15. So tell us about how did it come about and how long did it go for? I don't watch those shows at all. So you got to help me out. How did it come about? How long ago was it? What did you do? What show was it? Give us all the details.
Awesome. I haven't told this story in so long because I usually don't focus on the HG. I don't want to be remembered for that. But I'll give you the whole thing. So remember I said we went to that big event. Well, that big event led to us spending a lot of money on education. We ended up at a big summit out in Las Vegas. And I'll never forget this moment. Me and my wife were sitting in the front row, and we watched two celebrities from a TV show that I won't mention get on stage. And I don't know, sometimes it just flows through you, right? It just came over me, and I looked over at my wife and I said, Larissa, I said, if we're ever going to get on that stage, we got to have our own show. Now, I was a pro snowboarder in the past, and I had my retail store, so we made lots of videos. I mean, I was always filming a new snowboard video or for a part in a video, so I kind of had that understanding of doing that. And I said, when we get home, we're going to film a video. It's going to be, many people have probably watched Bam Margera's Jackass. So that was kind of my life. So I'm like, well, let's do Jackass meets Flip or Flop, and we'll combine the two. So we came up with this idea where our demo crew, which was my old skate team from the shops, they would come in, they'd demo the house with our project manager, or GC Blair Russin, who was an old pro snowboarder. And when they're demoing, they'd take all the debris, they'd build ramps in the house when we're not there, and they'd skate the house. And this really happened, literally. Like, I couldn't make this up. They did it. We filmed for a year on my own nickel. I funded this whole thing, and this is 2014. So we hired my friend who was a producer, and he filmed the sizzles, and it was awesome. But we got picked up by a big producer in Toronto, and he sent it out to all the networks. And the exact opposite, in life, Brian, sometimes you think you get this idea and you think it's going to go one direction, and then it goes the complete opposite. And that's the story of the TV show. We thought it was going to be a slam dunk. It's perfect. It was so funny. It was so original. And guess what? It didn't fit the little box. So we got told no, and literally a year later, it died. And our producer's contract ended, and we were just freelance. But I'm not the type that gives up if you haven't figured that out. So we found a new producer who took our concept and put it inside the little box, and that's what happened. But it didn't happen overnight. A lot of people think these shows, you send out a sizzle and all of a sudden you've got a TV show. Absolutely not. It was a 4-year journey, a 4-year difficult journey, one that was a lot of no's, a lot of redos, a lot of failures, a lot of time and money. But the end all be all is it did make it. And, how do I explain this so people can understand it? You film, what you're doing. And our concept was very unique, and HG loved it. So they were kind of, at this point, we made it through that first thing. So now HGTV is paying for our film crews, and we're filming what they would call the sizzles and the eventually the pilot reel. And we got all the way to the end. And when we got to the end of the road, we were the number 2 rated show at HGTV. And just so everybody knows, our original name for the show was Building Buffalo. But because we were number 2 out of Greenlight and in high hopes of it going like huge, HGTV wanted a more, dynamic name. So if anyone's ever seen that movie Risky Business with, where he slides across with the mic, they ended up naming ours Risky Builders. And that was the show name. And we aired last year. We aired 6 times on HGTV. It was like a dream come true. I mean, 4 years of work, never knowing if it's going to happen. Then all of a sudden it happens. And we had a big party here at our place. And it was just the first time we saw it was when everybody else saw it. It was just a magical moment. So that's HGTV's Risky Builders. And, for anybody that wants to check it out, you could just Google it and just go to HGTV. It's still on there. You can watch the sizzle reels. We're not airing anymore because just like I said, you think it's going to go one direction and it goes another. What happened next is last year, right when we aired, Discovery bought HGTV. And when Discovery bought HGTV, all the people that we'd been working with for 4 years at that network got displaced, all got sent somewhere else. And we had this new group of people who didn't know our show, weren't intimate about our show. And literally the end all be all was after we aired 6 times, they basically said, okay, well, we're not airing any new HGTV shows on flipping right now, so you're tabled. And what tabled means, I don't know. We're still under contract. We can't do any more filming with anyone else. So we're sort of just in a standstill. But it was the greatest thing that ever happened to us because it's paved the way for what we're doing now. Mm-hmm. But imagine getting that call when you think and you know and everything's going the right direction. You think you're going to make it. You're going to be these big TV shows, stars. And all of a sudden you hear that. I was devastated. And this is just last year, folks. This is literally just last year. I was, God, I'm not even going to say it, but like things that went through my head, I'm just like, it's over. Like everything we've worked toward is done. But that door closed, or sort of closed. It's still open a little, and it paved the way for everything I'm doing right now. Everything. And again, that higher power thing, sometimes everything in life prepares you for the next thing, and that's what it did.
Yeah. So why did you start this in the first place? It was just a lot of fun? Because it sounds like y'all were just like goofing off and just having fun.
In the beginning. It was super fun in the beginning.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So that's where I was going with this, because I've listened to Than Merrill talk about his show and from stage. I hear him say in the beginning it's awesome, in the beginning it's fun, and then all of a sudden the crews come in and it's like, hey, you go, no, you go, no, you, because I think there were 3 of them or something like that, and he ended up having to go, and so he gets, and I heard him tell this story where he'll get down to the house where they're filming. And he's like, and the crew are all like, or whoever it is, the producers are just like, hey, go ahead and we got to create some drama, so we got to try to figure out, some drama and make this happen. And Dan is just like, I got into this business so I could have a cookie cutter system. I don't want any drama, but they had to like create drama. Was that similar to something that you experienced, or was it more, you had more freedom?
Yeah, we had more freedom. So we had a good producer, a really good one that had worked with HG for a while. So it was more organic and natural. But I will tell you, so when you're demoing a house, unforeseens come up. And when an unforeseen comes up, you just solve the problem right there. They would be like, don't stop everything. Everybody stop working. You'd sit around for 3 hours while the crews figured out what they wanted to do and how they wanted to film it. They'd get all that thing set up and then like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And we're like, well, that's not really what we were going to do, but okay. So that kind of stuff happened. But they didn't say create drama. We had our own drama. Believe me, you put 2 ex-pro snowboarders in the same room with my wife, who is the designer, drama just happened. And the other thing that was very unique, and I don't want to give it away for anyone that wants to watch it, but the house we had was a mess and it had snakes everywhere. I am petrified of snakes. I am so unbelievably like scared of snakes that it's unreal. And every single time something happened with a snake, it got captured on film. And there was one time we were taking a wall down to make a 4-bedroom house of 3 to make a giant master. And we took the wall down. And I remember like the wall's down and I'm reaching down for a crowbar, and I reach down and right there is a snake. And the damn snake was in the wall. It was in the wall. So it wasn't planted. It wasn't like the crews put it there. And because we were filming this scene, it all got captured. It was a magical moment. And like, it was probably one of the best parts of the show.
Yeah, I'm terrified of snakes too.
I can't. Oh, and it was just little. It was this one, but to me, it might have been just this big.
Doesn't matter.
There you go. So me and you share that same thing.
Well, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely going to go back and watch it. We'll link that up in our show notes too, so people can go and check that out for sure. So you mentioned a second ago that the show itself, it paved the way for everything you're doing today. What do you mean by that specifically?
So because we had a show, now we have credibility on a national level. So a lot of the stages that I was getting on initially, I mean, now it's sort of, we're just getting linked up with tours, but a lot of the shows and the stages, they would want to hear the story of the HGTV. How did this happen? Because there's just not a ton of people that actually have that happen. So it got me on stages, but it also, when that door closed for the show and I thought it was all over. See, I had an education company teaching people all about real estate, a fairly large one. And at that time, when the door closed, I didn't want to be in the real estate education game anymore. I wanted to fulfill, but I didn't want to be on the front end selling it. So that's how I landed in the money side. And the other thing, and the reason it really paved the way, and Brian, here's the one thing. when we got the HGTV show, remember I told you I was a high performing, Wall Street advisor. My broker said to me, you're either going to be a financial advisor or you're going to be a TV show star. You have to pick. Well, it's a very easy decision when you've got a show ready to air. I'm like, okay, see ya. So I sold my financial business. And when I did that, it allows me to go out there now and tell people everything that I know about money and how it really works. The things you'll never hear, because the things I teach and the things I tell people about are things no advisor will talk about because they can't get paid on it. And because I'm not an advisor anymore, I can now talk about it. And for 16 years of my life, those things we knew about, but we never talked about. So that's how it opened the door. It really said, I'm not an advisor anymore. So I have the freedom to now go out and start really teaching people how money really works. And there are so few people doing this. And think about it. So if I was still an advisor, advisors at that level, I was doing it for 15 years at that point, they make a lot of money. There's no two ways about it. And for an advisor to quit and then just dive into real estate full time, it just doesn't happen. So I had that magic moment, which was the TV show, that allowed me to break from it and allowed me to really go on the journey that I feel like I was put on this planet to do. And now that's what I'm doing.
Well, let's talk about this, because I want to talk about the money stuff, because that's what you're doing right now. So you said you weren't really able to talk about certain things. What is that? Like what, for instance?
Yeah. So for example, let me just put it this way. So I'll just talk about IRAs. As an advisor, we did a ton of work with retirees, helping people plan for retirement, helping people save for retirement. And we would always use IRAs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, all the fancy investment vehicles. And that's what we sold. We got paid for managing money that way. But we kind of always knew what self-directed IRAs are, but we never talked about them. Why would we talk about a self-directed IRA when it's such an unbelievable vehicle? It's the vehicle that the wealthy use, hands down. No questions, no two ways about it. It is how the wealthy get wealthy and stay wealthy, but nobody knows about it because no one will talk about it because they can't get paid on it. The other thing too is, a thing called infinite banking. So I also did a lot of life insurance in my early years, and we were taught, I was at a really high level. I didn't even really work in the life insurance world with individuals. I worked with corporations and a little bit in the bank world. So we never knew what infinite banking was because the companies didn't teach it. Because if they taught it and they taught us to go out there and tell people and teach people what infinite banking was, and just for your audience, infinite banking, you should Google it first, but it is a 200-year-old strategy. It was created before the tax code was even written. It was created by the wealthiest people on earth, the Carnegies, the Rothschilds, the JPs, the Morgans. All them people put together a banking system based around insurance companies instead of banks because they're safer. They're stronger. And by doing this, they always kind of were able to maintain their money, never touch the principal, do it all tax-free. You hear about wealthy people all the time. They make all this money and they pay no taxes. Well, it's not because they're beating the system. It's not because they're cheating the system. It's not because they're getting some political loophole in most cases. It's because they know what we don't. And the reason nobody ever taught us what infinite banking was is if we started going out there doing infinite banking, we would have taken a 60% cut in pay. And I could ask anybody, right?
The financial advisor would.
Yeah. So I would ask anybody, if you could go out there and tell people what they really, really need to know and tell people what they should know, but in doing this, you're going to take a 60% pay cut. Are you willing to do that? What are they going to say? No, absolutely not. So that's the simplest answer. So when you teach people the secrets of the wealthy, or what I always call the wealth strategies, when we teach these, I can do it now, but back then I couldn't. And secondly, if I was doing it back then and talking about self-directed IRAs, if I am not mistaken, that would have been considered what they call selling away. And I can say this now, and I just got to be careful, but selling away is essentially if you were telling somebody to do something, one of your clients to do something, and it took money away from your broker and your company that you worked for, essentially that's called selling away. And it's unethical. You get fined and you can lose your licenses and lose your job. And just for telling somebody about something that probably would have changed their life. Yeah. So I don't want to go too deep into it because it could just get down to a rabbit hole, but you get the drift. Everything that people need to know if they want to learn what the wealthy do, you can't get from people that rely on you for a paycheck. You have to follow the dollar. And if they're giving you advice that creates a good lifestyle for them, are you missing some of the advice? The reason the wealthy don't miss this stuff is their advisors are just like attorneys. They're consulting. They get paid X amount no matter what they do. They're just there to find the best thing for that person. And that's the difference.
Excuse me. So Chris, what I just heard you say are some of the wealth strategies. The strategies of the wealthy are self-directed IRAs, probably Roth IRAs.
Absolutely.
And infinite banking concept.
Yep. And there's a lot more. So there's hidden equity, and that's so simple. Everybody knows about hidden equity. We all, know that buying real estate is a good investment, but most people own homes. And in the last 5 to 10 years, those homes have gone up in value. It's very predictable. They've all gone up. And these people are sitting on lots of money and equity in their houses. But we all know about home equity lines of credit because we go tap into our equity and we buy a big screen TV, we buy a car, we buy assets that are depreciating, assets that aren't worth anything. But what people are never taught is why not use your equity and send your money to work? Why is it that so many, and this is what frustrates me, but this is the thing that I know I can change. We all are taught to work hard. We're taught to go to work overtime, hustle, do what you got to do, and that's how you get successful. But what happens when the hustle's not enough? And it does happen. And the biggest mistake people make is we're taught to work hard. That's just our nature. It's what we're brought up to learn. But we are never, ever taught to send our money to work. So the reality of what happens is we go to work and we work hard, but our money sits on our couch, eating our Lay's potato chips, watching our TV while we're off hustling. We need to switch that and have our money go to work. And the only way to have your money go to work is to do what the banks do what the wealthy do, and send it to work. And how do you do that? Well, if you got money sitting in your home, why not bank that money? Take a home equity line out, find people that you can loan that money to. Go out and buy a rental property. Go out and buy something that produces an income. My mom's story, I tell it all the time from stage. My mom's house pays for her car. And how many people would love to learn how to have their house a liability, which is what their house is? How would you love your liability, your primary residence, to pay for your car? And I don't care if it's a Ford Focus or a Maserati. It doesn't matter. It's just the numbers of it. And that's possible. But you got to learn how to put your money in motion. And that's just like, how simple is that? Everybody knows what a home equity is, but not many people know how to truly use it. They don't understand the potential. And then there's employer-sponsored retirement plans, 401ks. Woohoo! We don't have time for that on today's show, but talk about an opportunity. That is a $10 trillion opportunity. And if we combined all your viewers of this show and all mine and us combined, we never in our lifetimes, no matter how hard we tried, could spend that much money. And it's available right there for us to access, to use. And it just requires you doing one thing different. That's just some of the things I show. And there's a lot more, but
it's awesome stuff. So let's bring all this together, Chris.
Yes.
Like let's bring it all together and really try to understand the key theme that I think you've said this 3 or 4 times now, is putting money in motion, keeping money in motion. What's the key maybe principle, or maybe let me rephrase that. What is the actionable thing that we can do by keeping money in motion, by using some of these wealth strategies like self-directed IRAs, infinite banking, maybe some hidden equity? What's some actionable things? What should we be doing with this stuff, and how can we get off the sidelines and get involved?
Sure. There's really 2 things first we need to cover before we do that. There's 3 sides to every single coin, but we only really ever talk about the 2 sides, the heads and the tails. And there's the heads and the tails. Every single person fits on one side or the other. Heads is all the people who have money, who want to make more money. Right. Tails are the people who need money to make more money. And the thing that brings them both together and makes the heads and the tails uniform is the edge of the coin. And the edge is financial knowledge. So with that being said, what you need to learn how to do, actionable items, is we need to learn how to pair up people that have money and want to make more with people that need money to make more money. And it's very simple. What you need to do is you need to create an opportunity for the people that have money that want to make more. Or if you have money and you want to make more, you need to find people that need money, and the people that need money, you need to then make sure that they understand the best way to work with you. And it's simple. Like, how many of you have gone into a bank and tried getting a loan? What are the steps that they take? The actionable items are, they look at your credit, but I don't really weigh too much on credit. They look at what the security is for the loan. Is it a house? Is it a car? Is it what asset's securing it? And then how do you secure that asset and tie it together? So you just need to duplicate what the bank does. So if you've got money and you want to make more on it, well, become a private investor. So that's easy. I mean, to be a private investor, number one, you find the source of the money. Is it your IRA? Well, if your IRA is in stocks, bonds, mutual funds right now, golden nugget I'll throw out, get out of the market. The market's at a high point, and Warren Buffett says says buy low, sell high, and don't lose money. Well, to not lose money, all you need to do is buy low and sell high. Get out. And the market's at a high point. So get out of the market, but then you need to turn that money and make that money work. So then basically loan that money to people like me, people that are watching this show, real estate investors. They are your best source. They need money for assets, for tangible assets called real estate and cash producing real estate. So loan money to them like the banks do. Securitize your loan by then, taking the property as a first position. It's what the banks do. It's very secure if you do it the right way. And if you don't know how, just get an attorney. It's the easiest thing in the world. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Find somebody that knows how to do it. And that's what Henry Ford did. So that's one actionable item. If you've got a home and your home has equity in it, go get a home equity line of credit. But don't go buy a car with that. Get a home equity line of credit and do something with that home equity line. Okay, go out there. If you got credit card debt, the very first thing you should do is pay your credit cards off. Every one of them. Take a home equity line of credit, pay all those credit cards off. But then this is what people forget. And this is so simple, Brian. You were paying the credit cards interest, right? Every month you were paying them an interest payment. So that money was out of your family, gone forever. What if you then took money from your home equity line, paid those credit cards off, but then took every penny you were paying to the credit card because you're already used to paying it, and you basically recaptured all that money and you put it back into your home equity line, right? You took all the money you were paying the credit card, but you just dollar for dollar started paying your home equity line back with that. What would happen? Well, your home equity line would replenish very quickly. So then when all that's done and all your debt's paid off, well, take that money and start paying off other liabilities. When you don't have any more liabilities, start finding other people that have problems. Find other people that need money for real estate. So I'm going a bit in a rabbit hole, but you get the drift.
Yeah.
So that's a home equity line of credit, and that's self-directed IRAs. The other thing I would say is 401ks, the $10 trillion source. So the thing that people understand about 401ks is I got to put money away, I got to save for retirement, and someday, and that someday is 59 and a half, I'm going to be able to use this money for my retirement. But the only thing retirement plans really offer is stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. So we ride this vicious cycle. And yes, I understand. Everybody says, yeah, but in the long haul, it makes money. Of course it does. The stock market will always make you money in the long haul. But the problem with the long haul is just like 2008, when things fall apart, when things crash down, and you have to make a decision of, am I going to leave my money in my 401k for my rainy day retirement, or am I going to stay in my house? Am I not going to go into foreclosure? Am I going to be able to put food on the table? Am I going to be able to pay for my kids' college? And then all of a sudden it becomes a balance act. What's more important? Well, living a life and providing for your family is more important than someday. So what people do is when times get tough, they bail out. They quit. And once you do that, it's all over. So what I always tell people to do is when the market's at a high point like now, get all your investments into cash and then take a loan from your 401k. Most 401ks allow for loans, and people take loans out and they do a lot of things, but repeat the processes that I just said with the home equity line. But the difference between a home equity line and a 401k, and this is what people don't understand, I'll wrap up on this, the interest that you repay your loan with, let's just call it 5%. Let's say you take a 401k loan, okay, and then you have to repay that money to your 401k. First off, it's your money. You're the bank. But that interest that you're paying back on that loan, you keep that money.
Right.
It goes back into your 401k. So many people think, no, my employer gets that. No, the 401k company. Absolutely not. You are repaying yourself with interest. I call that a guaranteed return because everybody's going to be honest with themselves. They're going to pay themselves back. Just do what the banks do. Sorry,
Nope, it's awesome stuff, and we need to hear this. And honestly, we talk about this kind of stuff pretty frequently. Actually, just last week we had a guest on talking about self-directed IRAs and solo 401ks and things like health savings accounts, things like that that are really eye-opening to people who have not taken advantage of this stuff. So, Chris, thank you so much for providing us for perspective, and we may end up getting you to Birmingham here pretty soon to talk in front of our crowd. So it'll be an honor for us to do that. But before we go, tell everybody kind of how they can maybe get in touch with you. They liked what they heard. They want to learn a little bit more about you.
Sure. I'm really easy to find. I'm all over social media. So you can just look up Chris Naugle, Naugle, on Instagram, on Facebook. Send me a direct message. I reply personally to all my direct messages. So if you do that, that's great. If you want to learn more about what we do, you can go to, I have a book. It's Money. Actually, how about this, Brian? Why don't we give every one of your watchers a free copy of my book, The Private Money Guide? Because if they like what I just told them, like, let's give them a free copy. So go to Money School, rei.com/book and grab a free copy of the ebook. I'll make sure to get a hold of them and put a free, like a free offer period for 20 days or something. So you guys can all go on there once this airs and get a free copy of the book. So that would be another way. And if anyone else, wants even deeper knowledge, that same thing, moneyschoolrei.com/masterclass. And that is pretty much my life's work right there.
Perfect. And so guys, go to moneyschoolrei.com/book to get a free ebook.
Free ebook.
Awesome.
The Private Money Guide.
Awesome. We're excited about that. And Chris, we are going to go check you out on Risky Builders. We're going to we're going to link that up in the show notes so you guys can take a look at that as well. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show and providing our audience with tons of value today. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Brian. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome, guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We love you so much, and we'll see you next time.